Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of 2 Samuel. Today we're in 2 Samuel chapter 4. And in chapter 4, you're going to have the death of Ishbosheth, except he's by no means going to die by natural causes. He's going to die by the hands of two of his captains. Let's look at some of the lessons and some of the things that we can learn from this short chapter. It's only about 12 verses long, and yet there are some things that we can see in this chapter that will help us both in our understanding of the setting of what's going on right now, but also in making some applications from the text. So let's look at what it is that we find in chapter 4. In the first couple of verses of chapter 4, you see Ishbosheth's reaction to the loss of Abner in chapter 3. Remember, in chapter 3, Abner is going to be killed by Joab in retribution for Abner killing Joab's younger brother Asahel. And in chapter 4, it says that Ishbosheth is going to lose heart. When Ishbosheth hears that Abner has died, he loses heart and all Israel is troubled. Ishbosheth was placed on the throne by Abner. Abner was the strength behind Ishbosheth's reign. And even though Ishbosheth had driven Abner off with paranoid false accusations and things of that nature, you still have Ishbosheth realizing that Abner is the true source of his power and his strength and his ability to lead the people of Israel. Ishbosheth is not a leader. Ishbosheth is not one who has the ability to command the allegiances of men on his own, as we're going to see with the sons of Rimmon. But here you have Ishbosheth being afraid because the man who was essentially going to turn his kingdom over to David is now dead. Because Abner is the only source of authority that he has ever fully put his trust in. One of the lessons that you have here in this particular chapter, and especially with this sentiment of Ishbosheth losing heart, is the fact that you have to be very careful about who you place your trust in and where you place your trust, because it can come back to haunt you. And especially if you mistreat the individuals whom you have put your trust in. Because here Ishbosheth mistreats Abner. Abner's going to leave. Abner's going to be killed, and then Ishbosheth all of a sudden has nobody to trust. He has nobody that he can place his confidence in, and he knows that he's the one who drove him off. There's also no chance at reconciliation because of the choices that Ishbosheth made. And so as Ishbosheth loses heart, it's going to have consequences in a number of different areas. But the second thing I want us to point out is actually somewhat of a side note or an interjection here in chapter 4. And it's actually found in verse number 4, and it's where we are introduced to Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is going to be the son of Jonathan. And it is going to be stated in one short verse here in chapter 4 that he is crippled, that his nurse was fleeing with him when the Philistines came in, when news came that Saul and Jonathan had been killed. And as she made haste to flee, verse 4 says, as they were running, Mephibosheth is going to fall. And when he does, he is going to become lame. There is going to be a problem that is going to occur in his fall. He is a matter of 5 years old at the time that this takes place, and he is never going to recover from that fall. We have no information as to what kind of a fall it was, where the fall was, what it was that was broken or that was made lame, but he never recovered and would never walk again. This is going to go back to something that is stated back in 1 Samuel, which is the promise that Jonathan and David make to each other to take care of each other's families. in a few chapters, you're going to have David trying to build the relationship with Mephibosheth and to try to show to him the kindness and the generosity that he promised to do when he made that promise to Jonathan. And so it is that he's going to be introduced here not because of his relevance to this account, but to his relevance down the line. Why is it inserted here? We don't know. But that's the reason for it being inserted. That's the reason why we have this seemingly ambiguous reference here in chapter 4. But then the final thing I want us to notice in chapter 4 is found down in the last couple of verses of the chapter. The sons of Rimmon come to David bearing the head of Ishbosheth, and they come seeking fame and notoriety and a position by David for having delivered his enemy into his hands. And yet David's sense of justice is going to bring things to a place where not only will he not reward them, but he is going to execute them for murder and for killing the one who was a king. You know, you go back to chapter 1, and David is there going to execute the Amalekite for claiming to have killed the Lord's anointed. Now, he didn't actually do it. He made the claim, he made the false claim, hoping to receive notoriety from David. Here, the sons of Rimmon come and they have the proof of what they have done. But David says in verse 11, "How much more when wicked men have killed a righteous person in his own house on his bed? Therefore shall I not now require his blood at your hand and remove you from the earth." David is going to use them as an object lesson. That there are right ways and wrong ways to deal with one's enemies and to deal with those kinds of situations. But you know, David doesn't even act as though he sees Ishbosheth as his enemy. Even though they have been fighting and even though there has been this civil war that is going on, David doesn't have any ill will toward Ishbosheth. David is becoming stronger. Ishbosheth is becoming weaker. Things are working themselves out as far as the standpoint of the hearts of the people of Israel. David didn't need Ishbosheth dead. Just like he didn't need Abner dead. And so David is going to take this particular situation and he is going to utilize it once again as an object lesson for justice. Now, there are going to be people that come out and say, yeah, but he did it for them and he didn't do it to Joab for killing Abner. That's right, he didn't. And I don't know exactly what the reasons are for that, with the exception of the fact that Joab continuing to live served as proof that David knew absolutely nothing about it because of the ways that David responded to it. And you have the situation where Abner was being killed by Joab out of vengeance, which was something that was allowed by the law. But here you have murder. There is no two ways around it. Ishbosheth is lying on his cot in his home at the time in which this takes place, or on his bed in his home at the time this takes place. He is not only defenseless, the indication is he isn't even awake when he is killed. And so David says this is completely indefensible by law or reason. These are some of the things that I found in chapter 4. I hope that they're beneficial to you. We'll go on next time and begin looking at what's found in 2 Samuel chapter 5. But until then, have a great day.